Welcome to Addy Story, where we share real-life stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul. Subscribe now to join our community, relax, and dive into the stories we have for you. Enjoy. It began on a balmy summer morning in Carolina. The air was thick with warmth, and I could sense my scarf adhering to my neck as I lingered outside the unassuming brick house. This marked the beginning of my journey in America, a stark contrast to the dusty streets of Amara where my roots lie. Returning home, I never envisioned parting from my family or my familiar surroundings, yet life has a knack for throwing unexpected twists our way. The Jacobs, an apparently ideal family of four, were in search of a nanny, and I was in need of the income. It wasn't merely about the salary. It was about demonstrating to my family that I had the capability to succeed in a land so unlike my own. At 31, I stood alone, unmarried and fiercely independent, a unique presence among Jordanian women. Sarah Thompson, the wife, exuded elegance and beauty. She donned impeccably fitted blouses and exquisite heels that echoed against the polished marble floors of their expansive residence. She welcomed me with a friendly smile, her blonde hair neatly arranged in a bun, and spoke in that careful manner typical of Americans, as if each word held significant weight. Next came Daniel Thompson, the spouse. He stood tall, exuding a natural charm that effortlessly made you feel comfortable. His sandy brown hair curled gently at the ends, and the lines around his eyes suggested a man who had experienced happiness, not merely hardship. That day, he offered little in the way of conversation, merely nodding with courtesy as he passed me a cup of tea. Amelia and Noah, their lively children, were 5 and 3, brimming with energy and an insatiable curiosity. Naturally, I felt a sense of apprehension. I had no prior experience as a nanny, yet Brianna confidently assured me that my role as the oldest of 6 siblings would be more than adequate. She exhibited kindness, yet it was evident that she held a perfectionist mindset. She presented me with a hefty binder filled with regulations, meal schedules, daily agendas, emergency contacts, and even guidelines for folding laundry. The initial weeks passed by without any notable incidents. I would rise at 6 a.m., whip up breakfast, assemble Amelia's lunch for school, and engage Noah until it was time for his nap. My days were immersed in tales, vibrant strokes of color, and the joyful pursuit of Noah through the backyard. As night fell, I would find solace in my cozy basement room, weary yet satisfied. One afternoon, roughly a month into the job, I caught sight of Zach observing me. As I sat on the kitchen floor, cleaning up the mess Noah had created with his juice box, I sensed his gaze upon me. "You're incredible with them," he remarked, leaning against the counter. My gaze shot upward, taken aback. "Thank you very much, kind sir." "Just call me Zach," he said with a smile. I acknowledged, sensing the warmth flush my face. It wasn't merely his words, but the manner in which he expressed them, as if he truly believed in their sincerity. In my hometown, it was uncommon for men to address women with such warmth unless they had hidden intentions, yet Zach appeared to be an exception. From that day forward, I started to pay closer attention to him. How he consistently inquired about my lunch, how he generously offered to assist with the groceries, and how he seemed to hang around the kitchen whenever I was cooking. Brianna, in contrast, frequently found herself missing, occupied with her demanding corporate career. "Do you never feel weary?" Zach inquired one evening while I was arranging the dining table. "Weary of what?" of catering to the needs of all. I simply shrugged. This is my profession. I've grown accustomed to it. You don't need to be, he said, his voice gentle. His words resonated within me long after he departed the room. It felt peculiar to be perceived in such a manner. In my culture, women were expected to give endlessly, to serve without question. Yet Zach's words filled me with a sense of appreciation. I attempted to brush it aside, naturally. I took a moment to reflect on my identity and the principles I hold dear. I was a woman of deep faith, shaped by my beliefs and customs. No matter the kindness or charm of my employer, there were boundaries I could never breach. Yet, as I would soon discover, life had different intentions. The summer seemed to go on forever, with days that felt both prolonged and sweltering. Brianna's business travels became increasingly regular, resulting in Zach and me spending more time alone with the kids. Gradually, the lines started to fade. Initially, it was all lighthearted, playful banter, fleeting looks, and easy exchanges that lingered just a bit longer than they should have. Yet, beneath the surface, I was acutely aware of the perilous path I was navigating. I frequently recalled my mother's voice, firm and resolute. Aaliyah, keep in mind your true essence. This world may lure you in, yet it is essential to remain authentic to who you are. I had always taken pride in my self-discipline, my knack for resisting the allure of contemporary distractions. But then there was Zach. Zach stood apart from the rest. On that rainy evening, a transformation began to unfold. The children lay in slumber, the house enveloped in tranquility, save for the gentle patter of rain against the windows. As I tidied up the kitchen post-dinner, Zach entered the room. "Could use a hand," he said, pushing up his sleeves. "No, it's fine. I'm nearly finished," I responded, yet he lingered regardless. We toiled in quietude for a time, the atmosphere thick with things left unsaid. At last, he shattered the stillness. "Do you ever long for home?" he inquired. "Each day," I acknowledged, "yet I arrived here with purpose." "You've given up so much," he remarked, his tone filled with respect. I gazed at him, taken aback. "What makes you think that?" "Because I perceive it. Your selflessness and unwavering positivity shine through in every action you take. It's uncommon." His words took me by surprise. I had never encountered anyone who spoke to me in such a manner before, not even in my hometown. A peculiar blend of appreciation and remorse washed over me, as if I were violating something hallowed merely by being present. "It's really not a big deal," I replied, downplaying the praise. "It is to me," he said, his eyes meeting mine with intensity. In that instant, a change occurred in the dynamic between us. It was understated, nearly undetectable, yet undeniably present. A bond, a flicker, a quiet recognition of something neither of us had the courage to articulate. That night, I lay in bed with a weight on my chest, caught in the struggle between my beliefs and the undeniable emotions that were surfacing. I sought fortitude, insight, and the bravery to remain true to my course. Yet, beneath the surface, I sensed that my reality was on the brink of transformation in ways I had never envisioned. I believed I could maintain a sense of professionalism, that the brief connection I sensed with Zach would dissipate like a transient cloud. Yet, existence seldom unfolds in such straightforward terms. Every day unfolded with fresh moments, minor and seemingly trivial at first glance. Yet each one gradually wore down the barrier I had constructed around my heart. Brianna's absence settled into a familiar pattern. She was heading to conferences in Boston, attending business meetings in Philadelphia, or enjoying overnight stays at luxurious hotels I had only glimpsed in magazines. Zach took on the role of the steady parent, while I joined him as a collaborator in the daily whirlwind of nurturing Amelia and Emmanuel. The children were completely enamored with him. Amelia would settle onto his lap during story time, her tiny hands gripping his shirt as he animatedly read aloud in amusing voices. Emmanuel trailed behind him, echoing his every gesture with precision. Observing them side by side, I caught a glimpse of Zach that was gentle and open, igniting a feeling within me that I struggled to define. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry in the living room, Zach entered with a box in his hands. "I thought you might appreciate this," he remarked, placing it on the coffee table. "What is it exactly?" I inquired, drying my hands on my apron. He lifted the lid of the box, unveiling a collection of cookbooks. "I've observed that you've been experimenting with different recipes recently. I hope this sparks some inspiration for you." I gazed at him, utterly at a loss for words. The essence lay not in the gift, but in the sentiment that accompanied it. No one had ever seen the subtle details of my efforts, much less valued them. "Thank you," I murmured, the words trembling as they struggled to escape my throat. "It's nothing," he replied, yet his gaze conveyed a different story altogether. That evening, once the children had drifted off to sleep, Zach and I found ourselves back in the kitchen. These serene moments following the day's turmoil had evolved into a cherished routine. As I polished the counters, his voice broke the silence. "You put in so much effort, Laila." I glanced upward, taken aback. "This is my profession." "No," he replied, shaking his head. "You go above and beyond your duties. Your concern is evident. Your affection for these children is as deep as if they were your own." "They're simple to adore," I remarked, attempting to divert the conversation. "Indeed, you are as well." The words lingered in the space between us, thick and fraught with tension. I stood still, caught in a moment of uncertainty about how to reply. "Laila," I started to say, but he cut me off. "Apologies," he replied hastily. "I shouldn't have expressed that." "No, it's fine," I replied, even though it truly wasn't. We lingered in quietude, the gravity of his words bearing heavily upon us. I felt the urge to express to him that he was mistaken, that I wasn't someone who could be loved effortlessly, and that I was intricate and imperfect, constrained by principles he could never grasp. Yet, I chose to remain silent. Time slipped away in a haze. I attempted to persuade myself that everything remained the same, yet beneath the surface, I was aware that it had shifted. Zach's essence permeated every corner. His laughter resonated throughout the home. His fragrance hung in the atmosphere, and his voice replayed in my thoughts long after he had departed. I started to observe the subtle details about him, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the way he hummed softly while washing the dishes, and how he consistently reminded the kids to say thank you and please. He wasn't merely kind. He possessed a thoughtfulness that seemed both rare and invaluable. One afternoon, while I was gently pushing Amelia on the swing in the backyard, Zach emerged with a tray of iced tea. "I thought you could use a little time to unwind," he remarked, offering me a glass. I expressed my gratitude as I accepted it with appreciation. We settled onto the porch steps, observing the children at play. "Have you ever pondered the possibilities of what your life might have looked like?" he inquired abruptly. I gazed at him, taken aback. "Could you clarify what you mean?" "If you had remained in Amara, things would have been different, wouldn't they?" I confessed it constantly. Yet, I arrived with a purpose. Have you discovered it yet? He inquired, his eyes unwavering. For a moment I paused, uncertain of the right response. In certain respects, indeed. Yet in some cases, it becomes intricate. He nodded, as if he grasped the meaning. Life certainly has its unexpected twists and turns, wouldn't you agree? Indeed, I concurred, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. For a brief moment, we lingered in silence, the atmosphere around us heavy with unvoiced thoughts. I wished to express to him the depth of my gratitude for his kindness, how his presence had transformed into a source of solace in a world that frequently seemed isolating and unfamiliar. However, I was unable to. I would not. That night, I found myself wide awake in my room, gazing up at the ceiling. Memories of my family flooded my mind, recalling my mother's heartfelt prayers and my father's serious admonitions. Remain steadfast in your beliefs, they often advised. Always remember your true self. I longed to think I remained that girl, the one who prayed 5 times daily and donned her scarf with pride. Yet the reality was that I was evolving, and it filled me with fear. The following morning, I steered clear of Zach as much as possible. I immersed myself in tasks, maintaining a low profile and concentrating my thoughts. Yet, as the afternoon wore on, evading him became an insurmountable challenge. He discovered me in the laundry room, sifting through a mountain of garments. "Aaliyah," he murmured, his tone gentle. I failed to raise my gaze. "Absolutely." "Are you doing all right?" I replied swiftly that I was fine, yet he remained unconvinced. "Please don't shut me out," he implored, taking a step closer. I realize I overstepped my bounds. "It's not about you," I interjected, finally meeting his gaze. "This is a reflection of my personal convictions and my spiritual journey." "I understand," he said, yet the expression in his eye revealed otherwise. How was he able to do that? "I can't," I started, but the words stuck in my throat. "This feels impossible for me." He nodded slowly, his face etched with a deep sense of remorse. "I apologize, Aaliyah. It was never my intention to cause you any discomfort." "You didn't," I said swiftly. "That is the issue at hand." For a brief instant, we remained still, the quietude enveloping us, conveying everything we were unable to express. "I'll give you space," he said at last. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice quivering. As he exited the room, a surge of relief washed over me, intertwined with a lingering ache that eluded definition. Although I was certain I was making the right choice, it didn't lessen the difficulty of the situation. That night, I poured my heart into my prayers like never before. I sought fortitude, direction, and the bravery to remain authentic to who I am. As I knelt on the floor, tears cascading down my cheeks, a realization washed over me. I was not merely battling temptation. I was battling a fragment of my being that felt unfamiliar. The days following our chat in the laundry room were charged yet bearable. Zach honored his commitment to allow me some distance, and I dedicated myself to redirecting my energy towards my work. I immersed myself in nurturing Amelia and Noah, organizing crafts, and baking activities that engaged us from dawn until dusk. Yet, despite my hands being busy, my thoughts drifted to him. Zach maintained a polite demeanor, yet there was a sense of distance, and I reassured myself that this approach was the most prudent path ahead. We might act as if nothing occurred, as if the words exchanged in the laundry room were merely a fleeting lapse in judgment. For a time, it nearly succeeded. Then arrived the tempest. On a Friday evening, shortly after the sun dipped below the horizon, the rain started to fall. The thunder rumbled ominously, rattling the windows and catching Noah off guard, who grasped my leg tightly while I tidied up the dinner table. "There's no need to fret, Noah," I reassured him, lifting him into my arms. "It's merely a faint sound. Allow me to prepare you for a restful night, if that's all right with you." I gently lifted him up the stairs, narrating his beloved bedtime tale as the rain cascaded outside. As the children drifted off to sleep, the storm outside intensified, its power palpable in the night air. The wind wailed, and an unsettling stillness enveloped the house, contrasting sharply with the turmoil beyond its walls. I made my way downstairs, anticipating that Zach would be lounging in his familiar place on the couch. Instead, I discovered him in the kitchen, gazing out the window, with a glass of wine cradled in his hand. With his shirt sleeves rolled up, the gentle illumination of the kitchen light accentuated the defined contours of his jaw. He appeared lost in contemplation, and I lingered in the doorway, uncertain whether to break the silence. "So, you're not a wine drinker, right?" he inquired without looking back, as though he could feel my presence. "No," I responded, entering the room. "It contradicts my beliefs." He nodded, at last shifting his gaze to meet mine. "I suspected as much. You stand out. Is that undesirable?" I inquired, a faint smile playing at the corners of my mouth. "Not at all," he replied, his tone gentle. "It's invigorating." I occupied my hands with wiping down the counters, attempting to push aside the way his words sent my heart into a frenzy. The atmosphere in the room crackled with intensity, and I sensed his gaze fixed on me as I toiled away. "Aaliyah," he finally spoke after a prolonged pause. "Indeed," I responded, my gaze fixed elsewhere. "May we have a conversation?" I paused my actions and turned to confront him. "Concerning what topic?" "Regarding our story," he murmured, his tone hushed. I shook my head, feeling my heart race. "There is no connection between us, Zach." "So why can't I get you out of my mind?" he inquired, moving nearer. "Zach, please," I started, but he cut me off. "I know it's wrong," he admitted, his voice quivering. "I'm aware that I ought not to feel this way, yet I find it impossible to resist. I notice you each day, nurturing my children, transforming this house into a warm and inviting home. And he paused, raking his fingers through his hair. "Your uniqueness is truly remarkable." My breath hitched in my throat. His words embodied all that I sought to dismiss, all that I convinced myself I had no desire to listen to. Yet, as I listened to those words spoken aloud, it became undeniable what was unfolding between us. "Zach," I murmured, my voice scarcely audible, "you're married. A family is part of your life." "I know," he said, his eyes brimming with anguish. "Yet Brianna is perpetually absent, constantly occupied, and when she is present, it feels as though we are unfamiliar with one another. You are the sole person who evokes my emotions." He paused once more, as though the words weighed heavily on his tongue. I remained motionless, caught in the conflict between the awareness of what was right and the deep yearning to be desired, valued, and acknowledged. "Zach," I murmured, though it wasn't a request for him to cease. It was a completely different experience, a yielding. He bridged the gap between us, his lips meeting mine in a kiss that began softly, then intensified as we surrendered to the feelings we had both been resisting for so long. His hand glided to my waist, drawing me nearer, and I felt myself dissolving into him, losing sight of everything else. Brianna, the children, my beliefs, my family. At that instant, he was the sole focus of everything. That night, our connection deepened beyond a mere kiss. As the tempest howled beyond the walls, we stepped over a threshold that could never be undone. He guided me up to his bedroom, his touch sparking a flame inside me that I had never realized was there. I allowed him to remove my clothing, his hands reverently exploring every part of me as if I were something divine. In his embrace, I experienced a sense of beauty, strength, and complete liberation. It was entirely different from what I had envisioned back home. Intimacy lingered in silence, a forbidden subject that thrived in hushed tones behind shut doors. Yet with Zach, it felt distinct. He exhibited a remarkable level of attentiveness, patience, and passion, evoking emotions within me that I had never imagined experiencing. For the very first time, I experienced a profound sense of being wanted. As it came to an end, we found ourselves entwined, the rhythmic patter of rain drumming on the windows. I was aware that I ought to experience guilt, perhaps even shame, a sense of revulsion towards my own actions. However, I chose not to. Instead, I experienced an unusual tranquility, as if I had at last discovered the lost fragment of my being. The following morning, the weight of reality crashed down on me with the force of a freight train. While preparing breakfast for the children, I averted my eyes from Zach, the burden of our actions heavy on my shoulders. Yet, when he locked eyes with me and offered a subtle, knowing smile, I experienced that familiar surge of adrenaline that had coursed through me the previous night. The story continued beyond that point. In the coming weeks, we discovered ways to capture fleeting moments, a gentle brush of hands as we crossed paths in the hallway, soft-spoken exchanges in the kitchen once the children were tucked in, a swift hug hidden away from prying eyes. Every time, I convinced myself it would be the final moment, yet it never turned out that way. Zach turned into my obsession, and I found myself unable to break free from his allure. He caused me to lose sight of everything, my beliefs, my background, the principles I had cherished so deeply. For a time, I allowed myself to think that we could maintain this, that we could thrive in our own secluded realm without the outside world discovering our secret. Yet, beneath the surface, I understood that it was unsustainable, and when the inevitable collapse occurred, it would result in nothing but ruin left behind. The ensuing weeks became a tempest, a haze of fleeting instances and hushed vows that infused my days with a blend of exhilaration and trepidation. Zach and I navigated our secret moments with a blend of caution and abandon, stealing time together in the quiet hours when Brianna was away. The children were tucked in, or the house stood silent. Every time our hands met, I convinced myself it would be the final moment, yet it never turned out that way. I experienced the sensation of navigating two distinct existences. Throughout the day, I embraced the role of Laila, the caring nanny who shared enchanting bedtime tales, prepared delicious meals, and offered warm smiles to Amelia and Noah. Yet, as night descended and silence enveloped the world, I transformed into a different person, one who was deeply connected to Zach in ways I had never experienced with anyone else. One evening, once the children were settled in their beds, Zach discovered me in the living room, diligently folding laundry. Brianna had departed that morning for yet another work trip, leaving the house in an unusual silence. He lingered in the doorway, observing me, his aura saturating the space long before he uttered a word. "Do you ever take a break?" he inquired, a hint of laughter in his tone. I glanced upward, a smile breaking through my defenses. It's essential that someone maintains the operation of this place. He traversed the space and settled next to me, our thighs lightly touching. You truly are remarkable. Have you realized that? I chuckled quietly, shaking my head. I'm simply fulfilling my responsibilities. No, he said, his tone now grave. You are so much more than that. Your contributions to this family surpass anything Brianna or I could have achieved. A wave of remorse washed over me at the sound of her name. It would be wise to reconsider that statement. What's stopping us? Indeed, it is. I turned my attention away from him, concentrating instead on the heap of garments before me. Your feelings for her run deep, Zach. She is your spouse. He let out a weary breath, his fingers combing through his hair. I care for her deeply, yet it's not in the way that feels right, not how I adore you. His words lingered in the atmosphere, weighty and inescapable. I felt compelled to express to him that he was mistaken, that he was incapable of loving me, and that our actions were merely a misstep. Yet, I found myself unable to, for within me, I recognized that my feelings mirrored those sentiments. He extended his hand, his fingers weaving seamlessly with mine. Aaliyah, direct your gaze towards me. With a hint of hesitation, I raised my gaze to connect with his. The fervor in his stare left me momentarily breathless. He expressed, "You are my everything." I'm aware that this may not be the best choice, yet I find it impossible to envision my existence without you. The emotions I had been suppressing surged forth, and he enveloped me in his embrace, holding me close as I wept. I apologize, I murmured. This was never my intention. Nor did I, he murmured gently. Yet, I hold no regrets. As the weeks stretched into months, our secret became increasingly difficult to conceal. Brianna's absences allowed us to explore our secret connection, yet the time she was present felt intolerable. I steered clear of her whenever possible, feeling a deep sense of shame that kept me from meeting her gaze. She showed me kindness, placed her trust in me, and remained completely oblivious to the treachery brewing within her own home. Aaliyah, you have truly been a gift to this family, she remarked one evening while we gathered in the kitchen. I can't fathom how we got by before you arrived. Her words pierced through me, and I managed to put on a smile. Thank you, Mrs. Jacob. Just call me Brianna, she said with a light laugh. You're like one of us. Her trust only intensified my remorse, yet it failed to deter me. Every night, once Brianna had settled in for the night, Zach would seek me out. At times, we would engage in conversation, while on other occasions, we would just embrace, enveloped in the quietude of our home. Frequently, we found ourselves in his bed, entwined in a fervor that erased all other thoughts from my mind. One evening, after Brianna departed for a weekend conference, Zach and I enjoyed a bottle of wine in the living room. I hadn't intended to indulge, yet he was relentless, filling a small glass and playfully coaxing me until I finally relented and took a sip. The comforting embrace of the wine enveloped me, easing the rigid hold of my restraint. You're beautiful, he murmured, his voice deep and languid. Are you aware of that? I shook my head, a warm flush creeping across my cheeks. You're merely expressing that sentiment. I'm not, he remarked, drawing nearer. You are the most stunning woman I've ever encountered. Before I could utter a word, he pressed his lips against mine, sealing our connection with an undeniable certainty. This was more than mere desire. It was an unspoken connection, a profound bond that eluded our attempts to define it. His hands found their way to my waist, drawing me nearer, and I sensed myself yielding entirely. That night, we never quite reached the bedroom. Instead, we remained on the living room floor, the flickering glow of the fireplace creating dancing shadows on the walls as we immersed ourselves in one another. It was fierce, untamed, and utterly captivating. The following morning, I found myself nestled in his embrace, the memories of the previous night swirling in my thoughts. Instead of shame, I was enveloped in an unexpected wave of contentment. After what seemed like an eternity, a sense of belonging washed over me. As I put on my clothes and made breakfast for the kids, Zach entered the kitchen, his face gentle. "Good morning," he murmured, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. "Good morning," I responded, making an effort to maintain a calm tone. "We need to have a conversation," he stated, his voice now carrying a weight of seriousness. I acknowledged his insight with a nod. We could no longer maintain the illusion that this was not occurring. We could no longer sustain the illusion of the dream world we had built. Yet, despite my agreement, a part of me lingered, reluctant to release my hold. The days that followed that evening in the living room drifted by in a blur. Zach and I grew increasingly daring, enveloped in the blaze we had sparked. Every moment spent in his company was like a hidden gem, a secret I held dear, yet approached with trepidation. However, as we continued to share moments, the weight of guilt became increasingly burdensome. Brianna came back from her conference that Monday, her presence in the house a vivid reminder of the life Zach and I were carefully unraveling, bit by bit. She radiated warmth and cheer, blissfully oblivious to the treachery unfolding in the shadows. Observing her engage with the children, I was overcome by a profound sense of shame. This was not what she deserved. Not a single one did. As night fell and Brianna drifted off to sleep, I found myself seated on the porch steps, gazing into the vast expanse of the shadowy sky. The atmosphere was invigorating, the stars twinkling like delicate fragments of crystal. I pulled my scarf snugly around my shoulders, attempting to fend off the cold and the tumultuous thoughts racing through my mind. Zach arrived shortly after, his steps gentle on the wooden floor. He settled next to me, just within reach, our shoulders grazing against each other. "You've been silent," he remarked, his tone subdued. "I've been pondering," I responded, avoiding his gaze, "about our relationship." I nodded, feeling a constriction in my throat. "Zach, we must find a way to move forward." He let out a deep breath, his fingers combing through his hair. "I understand. It's quite intricate." "It's not merely complicated," I interjected, my voice quivering. "It is incorrect. One has a partner, a household, and I've become adrift in this. I can hardly identify myself these days." He extended his hand toward mine, his touch soft and tender. "You remain true to yourself, Laila. You are the one who cherishes my children as if they were your own, the one who has revitalized this home. Don't allow this to destroy it all." I withdrew my hand, tears pricking at my eyes. "Indeed it has, Zach. Can't you understand? Everything has been ruined." For the first time, his calm facade shattered. "I adore you, Laila," he murmured, his voice trembling. "I cannot bear the thought of losing you." His words pierced me deeply. I loved him as well. That truth could no longer be ignored. Yet affection alone couldn't mend the wounds we had inflicted. "I love you too," I murmured, the confession escaping my lips before I had a chance to hold it back. Yet this, it is tearing me apart. In the week that followed, I came to a conclusion. I realized I had to leave, not in this way. The burden of our actions was overwhelming, and I found it impossible to remain in a home constructed from deception. I started my discreet quest for a new position, connecting with agencies and families seeking a nanny. It was quite a challenge. The bond I had formed with Amelia and Noah was profound, and the mere idea of parting ways with them shattered my heart. I understood it was the sole path to ensure my survival. One evening, as I was tucking Amelia into bed, she looked up at me with her wide blue eyes and asked, "Laila, are you leaving?" Her inquiry caught me off guard. "What makes you think that, darling?" "It's because you've been feeling down," she stated plainly. "And Dad says that people tend to go away when they're feeling this way." I managed a smile, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm staying put for the time being, Amelia. It's time to rest, all right?" She nodded, her eyelids fluttering shut. As I stepped out of the room, her words echoed in my thoughts. Individuals depart when they feel sorrowful. She was indeed correct. I was departing because I could no longer remain in a space that had transformed into a confinement of my own design. After a fortnight, I submitted my resignation. Brianna stood frozen, her face a canvas of bewilderment and worry. "Laila, is everything all right?" she inquired, placing her coffee cup gently on the counter. "Indeed, Mrs. Jacob," I replied, maintaining a calm tone. "I've received another opportunity, and I believe it's time for me to take the next step." She appeared truly wounded. "Your presence has truly enriched this family. Do you really believe this is the right choice?" I averted my gaze, unable to meet her eyes. "I have no doubt." Zach remained mostly silent when I shared the news with him. He merely nodded, his jaw clenched, his eyes brimming with an emotion I couldn't fully identify. Fury, sorrow, remorse. "It seems I won't be able to alter your perspective, will I?" he inquired softly. "No," I stated, my tone resolute. "This is something I must accomplish." Leaving that day was a mix of emotions. Amelia and Noah held on to me tightly, their tearful farewells shattering my heart. Brianna embraced me warmly, expressing her gratitude for all I had done for their family. And Zach. Zach lingered quietly by the door, his hands tightly balled into fists at his sides. As I placed my suitcase into the taxi, a peculiar sense of relief washed over me. The dwelling that had served as both my sanctuary and my confinement receded into the background as the vehicle drove off. Uncertainty loomed ahead, yet one truth resonated within me. The quest to rediscover my essence was imperative. I needed to rediscover the beliefs and principles I had left behind, and I needed to let go of all my past mistakes. That evening, in the modest apartment I had rented on the other side of town, I found myself kneeling on the floor, engaging in prayer for the first time in months. A wave of tranquility enveloped me. I wasn't flawless, and I had my share of missteps, yet I felt prepared to begin anew. Hello, everyone. If you found this tale captivating and wish to explore more narratives like this, be sure to give that like button a tap and subscribe for a fresh dose of astonishing stories each week. Thanks for watching this story on Addy Story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new tale. Stay tuned for more, and until next time, take care and keep living your own amazing stories.